It's surprising just how much we have in common with one another. If a person feels happy because they've received a high score on a test, then the likely is that there'll be thousands of people all over the world feeling the exact same way. Likewise, if somebody's received some bad news, maybe their best friend has moved away, then you can guarantee that there'll be people all over the world feeling the exact same way about a friend of their own. But what about our local community, here in this city? Ask yourself, do the people of my local community have the same feelings and worries in common? Have you ever spoken to someone and found out they have the exact same worry as you do?
Oh, Monday morning. Don't you love them? 6 AM. Beeping alarm. Oh, I'm Greg, by the way. In winter, it's even worse trying to drag yourself out of bed. Can you remember being 6 years old? What it was like to be excited about Monday mornings and getting up and bouncing around and going off to school and having a great time, and you couldn't wait for it? No, me neither. Except I've got Holly and Sophie to remind me. They love to wake up early. They love going to school, learning about new and interesting things. When I'm finally awake, I love taking them. Mrs. Malik is their teacher in class 3. She makes school fun for them. Makes the hard lessons easy, they tell me. Mrs. Malik lives quite near us. We often see her with her husband, Mr. Malik. Mr. Malik is a very large man. When he stands next to Mrs. Malik, Sophie says, he makes her look like a tiny ant. I see Mr. and Mrs. Malik quite a bit. In fact, Mr. Malik and I watch football together sometimes. We often go to the park with Ollie and Sophie. Mr. Malik walks his dog, Benji. Over the years, I suppose we've become quite good friends. Now and then, I do point out to the girls that Mr. Malik is a bit too big and he eats too much of the wrong stuff. But Holly and Sophie just think he's happy all the time because he's always messing around with them. He's never serious when they're around. He drives his big old car and he loves making the girls jump by tooting his horn. Just as we're walking home from the park. He used to offer us a lift, but he knows we'd rather walk. We like walking. Besides, it's only 5 minutes to get home. Where was I? Oh yeah, Monday morning. Right girls, well done. You've eaten your fruit and your cereal. Now go upstairs and put your uniform on. This is when I generally go out in the yard and have a cigarette. Sometimes I think about Jenny, Holly and Sophie's mum. Of course, I'm really sad that we lost her, but somehow it's hard to think about her without a smile. Holly and Sophie were only babies when the cancer took her. Since she died, I've raised both of them on my own. They're no trouble, really. To be honest, Holly and Sophie keep me alive. Listen, I never smoke around the girls. They don't even know I smoke, so I don't think too much about it. Mrs. Malik is always stood in the doorway of her classroom when the bell goes at 9 o'clock on a Monday morning. Considering the children in her class are so small, they don't half make a lot of noise. After Mrs. Malik has taken the register and found out some of the interesting things that her children have been up to at the weekend, she leads them down the corridor, down to the assembly hall. I think Mrs. Malik enjoys Monday morning assemblies just as much as the kids do. Mr. Perkins, the head teacher, he takes charge of assembly. When everyone's settled down, he comes in, stands in the middle of the stage, And first, he turns to the infant classes. "Good morning, infants!" The infants shout, "Good morning, Mr. Perkins." Then it's the juniors' turn. "Good morning, juniors." The juniors are usually a little louder. "Morning, Mr. Perkins." Now, today is a Monday, and as you all know, on a Monday, we usually have a special assembly full of interesting information and sometimes a fun and exciting story. This week, we have a guest. We have Miss Khan from the local medical centre. Can anybody tell me what goes on at a medical centre? They make you feel better when you're poorly, sir. That's right. And who works at the medical centre? Doctors and nurses work there, sir. Brilliant answer. Miss Khan is here today to talk to you about healthy living. Can somebody give me an example of healthy living or being healthy? Is eating fruit healthy, sir? That's a good example, eating fruit. Now, I'm going to hand over to our special guest. Please give a very big school welcome to Miss Khan. Hello, boys and girls. Hello, Miss Khan. Now, you're obviously all very bright and clever. You answered Mr. Perkins' questions very well. Over the last few weeks, I've been talking to parents from schools all around this area, all kinds of schools, and they've told me that two things more than any others are the most important health issues for children and their families. The first thing all these grown-ups thought to be important is a bad diet. Eating too much of the wrong kinds of food. The second thing that people mentioned when I asked them was smoking. When they heard this, lots of the children began muttering among themselves. Mr. Perkins put his fingers to his lips and the assembly hall went quiet again. Miss Khan continued. Now, do any of you know anybody who smokes cigarettes in your family? Some children raised their hands. Holly and Sophie sat as they were, hands on their knees, legs crossed. Okay, can any of you with your hands raised tell me how I might be able to tell if someone in my family was smoking? They smell funny, miss. Yes. Anything else? They cough, miss. Yes, smoking can make you cough. What about cigarettes themselves? Can anybody tell me what they look like? They come in a box and they look like white sticks. You have to light them with fire. Miss Khan pulled a box of cigarettes out of her bag and let the children pass it round. Of course, Holly and Sophie looked at each other. Both of them recognised the box. It was just like the one I keep on top of the fridge. They also both realised that their dad maybe smells a bit different from, say, some of the teachers in the morning. Smoking is very serious. It can cause a lot of harm to a smoker's body, especially their lungs and heart. It shortens their life expectancy, and if people around us smoke and breathe in the smoke, then it can harm them too. Holly and Sophie were getting worried. Sophie raised her hand. Please, miss, what is life expectancy? Miss Khan said, life expectancy is how long you'll probably live. If a person smokes, they have a good chance of dying sooner than a person who doesn't. Miss Khan continued her talk and went on to speak about a thing called obesity. She told the school that this was common in children and adults all over Britain who ate lots of the wrong types of food and didn't exercise, and that it was just as dangerous as smoking. Miss Khan showed the children a picture of an obese person. They said the person in the picture was very big indeed, so big that he needed a walking stick to get around. Mrs. Malik was listening very carefully. Sophie and Ollie listened very carefully too and thought of Mr. Malik and what I'd said about him eating the wrong stuff. At the end of the talk, Miss Khan asked if anybody had any questions, and 2 people put their hands up, Holly and Mrs. Malik. Miss Khan asked Mrs. Malik what her question was, and she asked, what should we do if we think somebody is obese or overweight? Is there anyone we can turn to for help? And what were you going to ask? Miss Khan asked Holly. It's the same question, only different. What do we do if we know someone who smokes? Miss Khan reached into her bag once again, pulled out some leaflets. It just so happens that there's a place just down the road where adults and children can go to learn more about health and being healthy. This leaflet will tell you and your family all about it. I'm there most days, so if any of you want to come along and talk or take part in some fun activities with your parents, then just ask me. Mr. Perkins thanked Miss Khan and got everyone to clap. Later on, Mrs. Malik noticed that Ollie and Sophie were keeping very quiet and asked them what was wrong. Are you 2 girls upset because your dad smokes? The girls were shocked. They'd no idea that anyone could have known that I smoked. Even they weren't totally sure. Don't worry. After school, we'll meet your dad at the gates together and we'll tell him all about what Miss Khan had to say. Then we'll go and visit Mr. Malik and have a talk with him as well. It's surprising just how much we all have in common with one another. If a person feels happy because they've achieved a really good score in a test, then chances are that many thousands of people all over the world are sharing the same experience. Likewise, if a person's just received some sad news, maybe the best friend has moved away, then there must be thousands of people all over the world feeling the same way about a friend of their own. What about our own local community here in the city? Ask yourself, do the people in my local community have feelings and worries in common? Have you ever spoken to a person and found out that they've had exactly the same experience as you? We've got one chair between us to sit down on while we take questions and ideas and discussion.